Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. We finally have Phil Freeman on with me.
Hi,
And
Timbers. Hi, Ron's viewers.
he's going to be talking about, the title is Striking at the Root of Tyranny. And I did write a little bit of a blurb here. It says, we planned to make this video over a month ago. However, various circumstances interfered. Phil is, as I just said, a Native American who lives in the Florida Panhandle. Like me, he has wanted to end the oppressive tyranny that has robbed humanity of our natural rights, poisoning our minds and our environment. These things have been happening for a very long time. However, only with the advent of the internet have people become more aware. So Phil, on that introduction, I want you to just talk to us, and I'll interject as it comes up.
All right, great.
Or not.
Hey, I tell you, it's finally good to get with you, man, with all the stuff that got in the way for us there. So I'm happy to have an opportunity to sit down and talk with you for a little while. Striking at the root of tyranny, that's a partial paraphrase quote from Thoreau. He says something, and I'll paraphrase this as well. He says something to the effect of, there are many hacking at the branches of evil, but only as compared to one hacking at the root. So it's
who is the one that's hacking at the root?
Well, that's the question. That's the question. There are many, but by comparison, there are few. So with the advent of this technology, we have found that those who thought at one point in time or another that they were isolated from their endeavors and desires to see truth and love prevail are now able to connect in real time. Now, the rub is, with that, we also have the ability to connect real time to world events, which are cataclysmic at times and horrific at times. So there's a great deal of stretching and pressures that come upon us. We don't know which way to go or where to focus our energies. I think that's unfortunate.
I know it's interesting. A lot of my friends are in the camp of the best thing to do is to ignore it. And to me, that's the ultimate thing not to do.
Well, and that may be the case, but again, it's a matter of individual perspective. And some people, Ron, whether it's a societal, institutional, cultural upbringing with a variety of values, mores, and norms that affect someone's decision making, you're taught and born with, to a certain degree, a certain type and I don't want to really attach a bad nomenclature to it, a bad description to it. You have certain coping skills, let's put it that way, that you have at your disposal. Some people cannot and will not deal with reality or the truth. They can't do it. It's not that they don't want to. It brings pain, and they have a highly allergic to pain issue going on there. So
yeah, I know. I deal with the pain. I don't drink. I don't do drugs.
Sure. Well, I'm not talking so much about the physical pain, but I'm talking about the pain that is
the mental pain
caused by that. Well, if it's good to ignore it, then it may be good to numb it, and then you see the rampant substance abuses that cloud judgment take over. So pain is something we try and avoid. It's genetically ingrained to us. We avoid pain at all costs. Most people have some tolerance to pain, and others have zero. Seen it. I don't have answers for them. And the deal is this, and at least for me anyway, I'm just trying to reach out to the people who are meant to be reached. I can't do it for everybody. Just one guy, and you're just one guy. You know what I mean? We want to bring attention to these things that are going on that are detrimental to our consanguinity, our blood. And as we natives say in the Lakota tribes, in the Lakotas, we would say all are related.
Mm-hmm. All our relations.
You are all my relations. You are that. Everyone is that. That's difficult with a pair of two eyes sticking out of your head, and not having people in your family group to make and forge those bonds. And that's why the tribal lifestyle was so important. The family, the clan, the tribe. It's very important. So we would share those grateful things. We would share those wonderful events, births, marriages, celebrations and death and remembrance and all the pain that came with it. It's not tasked and burdened upon one to take all of that. It's impossible to do it and remain healthy and a viable contributing member of your family. Okay, so people are facing this onslaught of information, and most of it is designed to elicit an emotional response and polarize, so that you don't necessarily make a actionable decision one way or another. You just emotionally decide, I like or don't like this or that because it causes me pain. So the idea then is to, at least for me anyway, is to be able to convey that truth of why we do what we do, say what we say, act how we act, or fail to act when we should. There's a great deal of variable in that, culturally speaking, societally speaking, and I mean that from a sociology standpoint. And it's also perpetuated to stay that way because those divisions remain. To sit down at the table with somebody in another foreign, truly foreign, not westernized, but truly foreign country and eat at dinner and then have bad social politics at the table might offend the guest at the table. How could you possibly have known that?
Yeah, when it's a different culture and you weren't trained in that culture.
Exactly. So the idea then is to become more aware of our world and how what we do as a collective and individually in the main affect the goat herder in Afghanistan or in Tajikistan or the guy trying to eke out a living somewhere in Mississippi. It really behooves us to take those things into consideration. But more importantly is when we address these problems that we see daily, we need to rank them, or at least I do. And I use David Hume's Utilitarian Method. Okay, he was a philosopher, an English philosopher. You can look him up.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, the name is familiar.
Yeah, okay, so he placed values on decisions, numerical values on decisions of whether it was a pro or a con to act or not act. And to see whether it was even in the realm of making any changes towards that end, and whether it would be beneficial to do it. So we want to address the problems that we see, but there are so many that elicit emotional responses with us that it's hard to land on one thing that would be your goal to change, whether it is for yourself or something in the environment, or whether it's on your media platforms or what have you, some way to actually get actionable results, so to do something. A lot of what is fostered in this presentation of media to us and news is, in my opinion, designed to elicit emotional responses and polarize people, but it's also designed to get them
polarize people is the key word there, I think.
Yes, but it's also designed to get them to not act. It's just enough to piss you off or just enough to make you smile, but not enough to make you act.
What actions would you recommend people taking?
I think the very first thing we need to do is address the problems that are obviously the ones in our face right now that are going to be immediate. If you don't have food, water, and shelter, you're in trouble, obviously. And Abraham Maslow shows the hierarchy of needs, what humanity needs in order to be what we would deem as civilized. Here's the air quote, civilized.
Okay, to me, the world isn't very civilized.
It definitely has its moments, I'll agree. And this has been, like I said, going on a long time. But if we address the problems and we ask the correct questions, then we get closer to that truth. And it's a matter of asking the correct questions. What mechanisms are in place that lead to these sufferings? What are those? And how is it that my decisions on a daily basis contribute in any way to that? And can I stop? Or am I addicted to convenience? What is it? It's a choice at the individual level. And like I've said, the problem and the solution lies in the mirror. It matters to the individual in the mirror, his choices, her choices. And as the collective overwhelms, it's like throwing a pebble into the pond. The rings emanate out to the shoreline you can't see. You eventually affect the goat farmer in Afghanistan with your decisions. It seems crazy to try and think of it in those terms and to be consciously aware of it in those terms at any given point in the day, but that's exactly what it is. And it's meted out through foreign policy and other wonderful little taglines that they try and throw upon us and this, that, and the other. But ultimately, it comes down to our own individual personal decision, day to day, moment to moment, and what it is we decide to do to benefit ourselves and others around us, or ignore the problem and, kick the can down the road a little bit. I can tell you this much, Ron. We are on globally speaking, we are on a path to destruction environmentally.
Yes, if we don't turn some things around fairly quickly.
In my mind, that should be priority number one. You don't shit in your own bed. You don't do it. A wise man once said, when the last tree is felled and the last fish is caught and the last river is poisoned, you'll know that you can't eat money. You'll know then. It'll be meaningful to you.
Yeah, money is actually a huge part of the enslavement system.
It absolutely
which
is.
Makes it a big part of the problem of our thinking.
It is.
We think that money is required. And
it's an interesting concept, Ron, when you think about it. It's perfect. It's perfect. We're gonna take the real valuable resources that you're laboring to alter for your survival and exchange it for something that is worth less. Not worth less than the asset, the land, the production, the resource, but
worthless.
Worthless. And people bought into that crap.
And they've actually, when they started out, they actually had something that was tangibly of value, at least, or the perception was that it was like gold, for example.
Right.
Gold nuggets or gold coins or whatever. And they've gotten devolved into paper, just paper.
Sure.
And it doesn't, and the numbers written on the paper are meaningless because they don't exist until you borrow it, not create it, but
that's right. People don't make that connection, Ron, that what we use, even in its digital form, the Federal Reserve note, it is evidence of debt. It is not an asset. No. And you can't pay for anything with a debt.
But it makes for a big illusion that's been very effective in keeping the sheep where they can be controlled.
It's interesting.
The only thing is some people have the wherewithal to venture out into the wilderness and to become self-sufficient. Most people, including myself, can't do that.
Right.
Or have no predisposition toward trying to live off the land.
Well, living off the land is what we do anyway. We just do it by proxy.
True.
I mean, we do. It's changed, but it's still Mother Earth, and it's still the provider. So we would do well to take good care of that.
Which we don't do.
Which we don't, by and large.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that is going to be critical in my mind, and within this generation, to be sure. It already is. I'll give you an example of what's going on right now where my ancestors are from, in the Dakotas at Standing Rock Reservation. You have a massive oil company that's running or trying to run, in the process of constructing and running, a giant multi-hundred-mile oil pipeline through the reservation. So a group of the kids decide, we're going to protest this and get redress for our grievances. They filed an injunction, which was ignored. So the Army Corps of Engineers goes with the go-ahead to allow the permit for construction to continue. So a group of the Standing Rock youth go on a relay run from the Dakotas to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Tell them to stop. Right. Well, they didn't stop. So the tribe goes out and they lay themselves in front of it and block the construction. And then you have, the local uniformed thugs coming out there and arresting these folks because they want clean water. Pipeline is going to leak. Everything moves to entropy. That's thermodynamics. We're in decay. Even our bodies, all of us, everything. It's not a matter of when. We know it's going to happen. It's when it's going to happen. They all leak. They all leak. You don't have water. What do you do? But here's the difference. You don't see it cutting through major suburban or urban areas. You don't see this pipeline running through that, where people actually have means and political power. You don't see it. What you do see is it running through the most disenfranchised and marginalized group in this nation, and that's the Native American people. Probably some of the wisest among the people in this nation. If one takes time to get to know the elders, you'll see that. Okay, so I find it interesting that what has continued continues to take advantage of the powerless and offer them worthless things. Take the assets. What are you going to do when the average income in that place is under $10,000 a year?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, I don't know. The Washington Redskins? I mean, you know, it'd be a different story if it were the New York Niggers or the Kansas City Kikes or the Wisconsin Wops. The place would be up in arms. Not a peep. Not a peep. You know, and they're not racial slurs, but they are. They are. The savage red skin. Yeah, people would do well to listen.
Well, it's interesting. You say
There's a lot of wisdom there, thousands of years of it.
Native Americans that ultimately migrated here from Europe, say, are not redskins. They are white. They look like the normal white people from northern Europe, and
Sure,
they were Native Americans.
That's interesting that, you know, they have this idea that there was an Asian migration across the Bering Straits, an ice bridge, and this, that, and the other. But what they don't tell you is, and you'd be hard pressed to get it from the native people, the elders who preserve these sacred things, and they don't put it in the media for you either. But there's evidence of our people being here that is far older than what they say exists, which is the oldest they go back to is Clovis man. No, it
goes back to the time of Atlantis, actually.
Right. We're a much older group of people. You know, it's just the facts. It is what it is. But that's not jiving with academia and the control agenda. So
no, and much of our history is concocted to favor the Caucasian race, for example.
Sure. Absolutely, or whoever's in power at the time.
Right.
You know, people generally don't want to labor for resources. If you can get it by conquest and occupation and not have to risk anything, you send somebody else out to do it and you reap the benefit, all the better. You know, this idea of harmony and living together amongst everybody, I think might be an illusion.
It's a dream that I've seen. That, to me, that's what the kingdom of heaven is all about. Sure. Everybody learning, not just getting along, but learning how to get along.
Which
means listening, which means paying attention to the differences as well as the similarities.
Sure.
And building bridges of cooperation rather than continual distrust and aggression.
Well, if we get past the surface of things, you know, the surface elements, we'll find that we're much more similar than we are dissimilar. And, you know, once you're able to cross language barriers and those little cultural barriers, and I'm not a big fan of culture. Yes, I have one, but I think culture is the enemy to a large degree. It puts up a boundary and a barrier and doesn't build that bridge you mentioned. So taking those things, but what do you do when you're, you know, a biochemical programmable, fully programmable badass computer? You're going to learn what you're taught. I mean, these prejudices and stereotypes and you know, racial divides, those are taught.
Mm-hmm.
They're not ingrained. I've seen little kids of all colors play fun games with each other from 2 years old to 10 years old, having a great time. It's after that 7 to 10 year mark that you start seeing attitudes take place, and that learned foundation becomes the foundation. It's very difficult to get away from. I mean, if it's what you know, that's what you know. So addressing those problems which are imminent and immediate are absolutely a must. Absolutely a must. And there's a whole host of them. We have a whole host of them, and it affects everybody differently on different levels. But solutions are what matter. Hope is not a method to a positive end. It's just not. Now, it may keep you alive psychologically for longer than the other guy in the same situation, to have hope. I don't think it's a terrible characteristic to possess. But I would say it is not a method to an end.
What are some of the methods that you think might be more positive in achieving the result than just hoping?
Well, go across the street or across the lawn and talk with your neighbor. Ask them what they need. That's one way of doing it. Ask for their opinion. Hey, did you hear about such and such? What are your thoughts on that? Have you given it any thought? See, my consciousness plus nothing new gives nothing new. It's only when I interact with another that that new thought form of possibility arises. If you're by yourself, you can't do shit. But it's only when you network with others of like mind and light brush fires of liberty in their mind. What does it mean to be free and healthy and safe and secure and fed? What do those things mean? It means different things to different people. I promise you that.
Yeah, I know in the house that I lived in for 10 years, I knew a significant portion of my neighbors, you know, and I had general interaction with them.
Sure.
Here that I'm staying at my son's place, I've gotten to know some of the people in the neighborhood, not as much as I did where I was for 10 years, but and I have a lot of resistance toward not having my own house.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, again, that's one of the imminent crises you faced, and you're the better for it now. You're the better for it now. I see it and I know it. We've been speaking for a long time, Ron.
Oh, yes.
A little over 5 years, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's over 5.5 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. So I've seen some transitions and shared, you know, a portion of your life with you, albeit digitally.
Right. Which is what most people do. I mean, I don't have and most of my friends in my spiritual community are of the avoidance mentality, and that, you know, there's nothing in common with them anymore because they think that I'm some kind of a heretical troublemaker who's just trying to stir things up and make people aware of something that we're supposed to avoid and deny.
Well, I agree. I understand that, and I would say this, that, you know, having been in a professional occupation that a lot of times has conflict in it, as a former deputy, I would say people want to avoid conflict. It causes them pain. It creates fight or flight. So we don't want to poke the wasp nest with the stick and be stung by the colony, because our displeasure, you know, compels us to do so, and that's what it is. It's a conflict avoidance issue. But you'll also see them quick to point the finger in judgment on something they don't like, but aren't willing to act on it. Even to
yeah, they'll point their finger at people that are trying to make a difference, like me.
There you go. Well, that brings change, Ron, and change is fearful. It's a fearful component in people's lives. It brings discomfort and sometimes pain. And rather than see that big panorama, the broad view that we've mentioned before, they focus on this little narrow box of good and bad that's in front of them, and the next one goes over, and the next one. So it's little bits of good and bad rather than a big broad view of what is and what is potentially to come, that we actually have the ability to impact. You see? So talking with the neighbors, back to solutions. Talking with the neighbors is a good way to start. Local meetups are great ways to start. Find projects that benefit your community. And I don't mean the county in which you reside or you're domiciled in. You can't possibly impact the whole county individually, but you can take on certain challenges to be able to get actionable results. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of opportunities out there for us to affect somebody, whether it's buying a pair of shoes for someone who doesn't have it, a child, giving somebody blankets in the wintertime, even though it's Florida, it still gets cold as crap here.
Especially up in the panhandle where you are. Not so much in Central and South Florida.
Yeah, you don't get it like we do, but we don't get it long. So that's good. But yeah, these are actionable things. And I tell you something, for those who have a little bit of age on them, you want to get with the youth. They'll draw on you as a resource, a wisdom resource that they don't possess and can't get on Google. You know, trial and error is a hell of a way to learn, and I have the injuries to prove it. So I can offer what I can't do physically now. I can offer in a consultation styled manner, and it's it works. It works. So these types of things, you know, why aren't we down at our local water reservoir, whoever the municipal water company is, and demand they take fluoride out of our fucking water? Why aren't we standing in front of there saying you're not going to deliver any more fluoride to this place? Why? I don't understand it. We're content to be poisoned purposefully.
Well, that's why I lived in a house that had well water, and even now I drive all the way down. What's it? 15, 20-minute ride one way to get reverse osmosis water. I used to have my own reverse osmosis in my house, but it was well water. It had never been contaminated with chemicals.
Sure.
The ground, it might have been contaminated through the ground, but not because somebody added it to the water specifically.
Sure. Yeah, that's insane. Why would we allow some nonsense like that? Why do we allow the Florida power companies or any power companies to stick a high radiation, microwave radiation smart meter on our box to blast through our homes and irradiate us? I didn't agree to that.
My smart meter is right there. The smart meter in this house that I'm in right now is right there, just, 3 feet from the end of my fingers.
Yep. So I put a turkey baster over mine, the aluminum turkey pan, and wrapped it with duct tape.
Well, I have mine completely wrapped in like 3 or 4 layers of heavy aluminum foil.
That'll do the trick. That'll do the trick. And what you'll find is somebody will come out eventually and knock on your door and say, listen, we're having some problems communicating with this unit on the wall out here, and we were wondering what that is you have on the front of it. See, they can't take it off there. The box is yours. The meter's theirs. They can't take your property off there. They don't have right of access to do that. They have to talk to you about it, which they talked to me about it. I said, look, I didn't sign up to be irradiated. I wasn't given notice. Hey, we're changing this out, and it emits this. Went from analog to a digital, radiation box beside my bedroom, dude. I didn't agree to that. And that's what it turns on. It's an agreement. So I left it up.
My son is trying to convince me that there's nothing wrong with it. He's done the research, and it's all fine. It doesn't. We already have all these waves going through here, and whatever they're doing is okay.
I tell you what, if you want to prove it to him, tell him to go out to his local garden shop and buy the prettiest small potted plant that he can find, put the shelf right next to the wall where that thing is emitting, and then give it a week. No, seriously, give it a week and see what the plant looks like. Tend to it, care for it. Let's see what the plant looks like in a week. You'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
You'll see what I mean. I mean, the proof is in the results, my friend.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that people can do, but until people learn to get together to do them, or until there's some kind of something stronger than the existing system that can step in and help, be that some kind of divine intervention or extraterrestrial intervention, I don't see the problem. I see us destroying the planet another time.
Well, there's a third option that can bring people to that too, and that's catastrophe.
Well, that's true.
You find the best and the worst in people.
Happen that way.
Yeah. So there's a third option there, which would be, good to avoid if at all possible. But I agree with you, Ron, that finding like minds with similar motivations and similar passions.
And willingness to take action.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And encourage others and seek those out. You tell a friend, they tell a friend, 2 friends are told, 3, 4, 5 friends are told, and then you have a movement.
Yeah, we're coming up on the 30 minutes, by the way.
Okay.
It's getting close.
So as another solution that has come to my mind, I'll be brief, Ron. I know I've mentioned Harmon Taylor to you several times, and I've been a friend of his about as long as I have you. And he is of the opinion, and he's the former Texas lawyer that surrendered his bar commission and closed his practice after learning what's really going on in the legal reality world. He's of the opinion that a return to honest weights and measures by encouraging the small business owner to accept anything other than the private debt instrument of the Federal Reserve would bring us back from a maritime choice of law to a common law system that we once had.
Yeah.
Once we left that in '65 and silver was taken out of general circulation, we moved full on into maritime law. At the same time, the UCC was codified in '65. Right there. So
real money doesn't exist in the United States anymore, although
it's not
other
in general
countries now
circulation.
reinstituting
Yeah,
real money insofar as backed by something of value, supposedly.
well, when I say honest weights and measures, a lot of times that goes over someone's head. It used to be various kingdoms, whether that would be the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the English, they all had their own gold sovereign and silver coin, but it was in different weights for different names. So honest weights and measures meant I could take a scale, a little balance scale, and money change and know the difference. So I could put, a Dutch coin on here and know that I'm getting the correct balance, or the English coin or the French coin. And that's the honest weights and measures approach. You see, actually getting what you pay for, the fruits of your labor, as it were. So if we return to something like that, it would be a lot more beneficial. It wouldn't solve everything, but it would be a lot more beneficial to us as a people than what our current situation is, without a doubt. And the only way to do that I've seen, and that, of course, Harmon has talked about many, many times, is to, again, encourage the small business owner to accept anything other than the Federal Reserve note for goods and services. Once we do that, it starts at an individual level, and then it moves and blossoms out. And then we actually have a change. We agree to use these Federal Reserve notes. We agree to it. Now, it was kind of a shell and pea game. It wasn't formally announced, but it was definitely introduced. And so I would say the great majority didn't pay attention to the change.
Oh, of course not.
We had a lot going on at that time.
There's always a lot going on to divert our attention to something else.
That's right. And you know as well as I do that, what was it, Roosevelt's quote that said, if anything happens politically, you can bet it was designed that way. It doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
And it is designed that way. Hey, look over here while I do something over here. So it kind of was a notice, except for the people and players that were involved in the exchange. And the bills didn't change, but there was a phase out that had long been going on, removing coin in general and going to paper. My great-grandmother and my grandmother had coin in their little pocketbooks and their change purses. That's how they paid for things, especially back when a day's wage was $2. Very few people are going to pull out $1, a half a day's wage, and buy something in the store. So you used coin. Well, that was slowly phased out. It's a long time coming that we are in this situation. And I'm hoping we can do something about it in time for it to matter. And again,
me too.
Individual choices, Ron, and communications like this and with the viewers. We have to address these problems, but we actually have to fucking do something about it. You can't sit back and let them poison you. You can't sit back and let them spray you anymore. I mean, we can't. If we want to be alive and have our posterity, to come after us, if we want a living planet, if we care, we better do something. That's just my thoughts, man.
Okay, well, thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
It's funny. I just had a warning that I have high CPU usage. I have a browser open. I have the thing that's recording this, and I have the word pad that has the introductory notes and stuff on it. They're the only programs that are open.
I got the same.
And I have 8 gigabytes of RAM on this computer. I'm not using it.
I got the same.
Somebody else is.
Well, good. I hope they pay attention.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and this will go up later on today. I have to process it and everything now. So.
Hey, we'll do it again, Ron.
Okay, well, thank you, Phil.
Schedule
Appreciate
it out sometime. We'll see what we can come up with, man.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, take care, buddy.
Yep, namaste.
You too. All the best.